Less Dakka. Who's calling for less Dakka? Whoa! Welcome back to WAAAGH Tactics. We're here to talk about More Dakka, the possible meta to come, the onslaught of the orcs among the Umis, and how the whole Warhammer community is shook up. So today, oh boys, we're going to give our thoughts as to More Dakka, as to where the orcs may have to look towards in the future, give some examples, and actually inspire some hope and inspiration and some motivation, as I'm very aware that some of the orc community has been put in quite a predicament as to you have some upcoming events, you have things that you want to be participating in, and you really don't know where to go because GW might just nerf your dreams into the ground, or the units that you're not even the detachment you're not even trying to play is going to be hit because the units within it are going to be nerfed. You have no idea. So today we're going to just talk about as a whole how orcs can kind of carry on, be inspired, and just overall get stuck in, lads. But of course, a good shout out to today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice, as they help us get us stuck in with the paint competition. So if you ain't one of them kids, check it out. They have great dice, great value, and it means a lot to the community. And of course, shout out to Forgefire Gaming, as they allow us to do our practice, our events, our reviews, and this is some of the event terrain that you can find in the Midwest. It has good basing so that your terrain doesn't slide around the table, and it helps people set up for any GW upcoming events. So of course, like always, let's start with the stats and the facts. So you guys, a lot of the time, people are I see both sides of this, right? So mind you, I don't really take either side, as I'm right in the middle because I simply love orcs. There's part of the player base, whether you're orc or not, that says this is way too strong, it's toxic, I hate it, GW, nail it. But don't destroy it too much, and don't make Dakka itself, whether it's among any other detachment, whether it's tactical or Dreadmob, be hit as collateral damage. And then there's the other side of the player base that says, hey, you guys are kind of simply overreacting. Just fine tune it, tweak it, keep a lot of what it already has, simply increase maybe 1 to 2 CP, and allow maybe sustain 2 to remain on walkers and some other units, because a lot of the detachment is simply 3 to 4 problematic units, which would be Zagrod, shock attack gun, Ludas, and then tank busters. So I see both sides of this, and I think both have merit, right? A lot of the time the truth isn't black or white, it's gray. What I would say is, for the same side of the player base that is very what some people would say dramatic or extensive, or banning us, or whatever it may be they want to use to describe it, some of what they say does have merit. But I would also say, let's give them some love, because those same people would also say that Mega Nods, for example, and the Bully Boys were hit too hard, right? So there's a bit of truth and leeway that those people want to have, but at the same time, there's a bit exaggeration and kind of inflating what's happening, right? A lot of times people are like, Ludas are hitting on 5s, and it's like, well, the Spanners are just hitting on 5s, which is fine. I'm not really going to hold them to it. You can't know every detachment and every faction and data sheet in Ork 40K. All I'm simply saying is, let's not be over the top, and let's just know that at the end of the day, GW set us up. We shouldn't be against each other. They set the rules up. They do this every now and again. For whatever reason they may do it. Sometimes we all have our own speculations, but we should just keep in mind that, like all things, this will pass. And so orcs should look ahead and realize, one of the big things that changed that orcs need to remember is that the WAAAGH timing changed. A lot of the success that we're seeing among the detachments that we're going to look at right now, just in stats wise, that are not More Dakka, could be finding success simply because they're getting the WAAAGH called on their turn, right? If you're new to 40K itself right now in this edition, you've never experienced that. I promise you that it gives you great timing. Unless you're playing Dreadmob, everything is a benefit from it, right? So there are other factors that we can still experiment with. So today, the lists that I'm actually going to cover are not going to be More Dakka lists. They're going to be War Horde, Green Tide, and then giving examples and kind of explore why I think that orcs will be fine either way, whether we got nailed up with our More Dakka, or we find our way with tactical, if people who want to shoot a lot, or Dreadmob, or if guys that just want to find success and have to go back to War Horde, or whatever other variation of cunning that will lead them this way. So let's give a review of what's happening and why everybody is shook up. And now that we've set up the basis that, hey, no bias is coming here, we just coming from both perspectives and say, hey, I understand it, but at the end of the day, GW is what set this up, and let's just play the game as it is and look forward. If you're beating up your friends a little bit, just use a lot of walkers. I promise they won't feel bad when your Dreadmobs are blowing themselves up, right? So shout out to my boy Jay Hoon, 10 WAAAGH Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa! So of course, We're going to come out with more videos for the membership. And speaking of, we're going to do a video with Noah Bedham, which was the founder or who set the archetype for what's kind of known as the group swim, which is the green tide archetype that's being found very successfully and has repeated itself. Like today, we're showing right here in the green tide 59% player base. One of those people who did end up going 4-1 this week was running a very similar group swim archetype, right? Sorry, I had a little hair in my face. And then the week before that, which is what we're actually going to cover, a undefeated Ork green tide list from Nicholas. Was also running a very similar actually the exact same archetype as Noah. So there's definitely successful ways, and we're going to be stuck in talking to Noah. So thank you very much, Jay-Hume. Very love the support and everything. Ork's been eating good since Grotmas. Thanks, GW. Yeah, we were even good even before that. Now it's just exceptional, right? Now if you ever seen what's that movie called? Oh my goodness, The Platform. We're just sitting on level 1 right now, right? We were already doing kind of decent. Now we're out here with The Platform on level 1, a little sadistic in some ways to some of you gets, which is all good. I get it, right? We've been the butt of jokes for a hot minute, so Orks are kind of enjoying it. If you're one of those kids, go ahead and do it. I'm not even bashing you. Go get stuck in. So More Dakka had so in general, Orks had a 61 players overall, 62% win rate. Fantastic. Crazy. 23 players that went X and 1. We had 67% win rate on More Dakka, which is outrageous. 19 players that went X and 1. 4 of those players, I think, went undefeated at least, or actually there was more than that. It was event wins, 4 event wins, because it was like 6 or it was something like 9 players went undefeated itself. But just look a bit like this, Ork players. 23 players going X and 1 means that about 36 to 37% of the whole Ork player base itself was going X and 1 out of the 61 players that played this last weekend. I know that 19 of those players were More Dakka. Therefore, it's more like 34% of the total player base was More Dakka. Almost 1/3 of the people who are winning events this weekend of the Ork players who played this weekend were More Dakka players going undefeated or X and 1. So it's pretty crazy. That's why everybody's kind of shook up. If you didn't know, that's the summary of it, right? 1 in 3 of the people were just going crazy, going X and 1. Then we had one person with Dread Mob. Shout out to you. You get freaking couldn't find you, but I'll find you one day wherever you are. Who went 67% just going out there on themselves. Green Tide, like we just spoke of. Tactical Brigade, yes, they did have an event win, but I will say that it was with the prior points, the fact that they could do 2 orders, stuff like that. So that's subject to change, but I do think that there's some exploration that could be done on Tactical Brigade. It's a bit less appealing because mounted units aren't that appealing if you can't give them 2 orders. Typically, you'd want to give them stealth and rerolls or strength and rerolls and such like that. So that's a factor, but we'll see what's going on, what you guys cook up with that, right? With the Tactical Brigade. Then we have War Horde at a 51% win rate, which will be showing some of their event placings. We had a Bully Boy with a 40%. Just successful overall, right? If you're playing RTST level leagues, whatever it is, socially, I promise you, Bully Boys totally has merit, especially if you're really good in the combat phase. So stay proud in that and keep playing if you're having good. Who doesn't love two WAAAGHs? I promise you, if you had played 40K in prior editions and I had told you as an Ork player that you had multiple WAAAGHs, you would be in disbelief, right? So the people who are appreciating that, you guys are in your right mind. It's all good. I promise you. Just wanted to let those guys know because they're out here like, dude, I'm playing Bully Boys, right? I'm not crazy for loving this. No, you're not. You're awesome. Then we have Cult of Speed guys that are trying to make you are what is this? The proper terminology. Where you like to hurt yourself, right? I forgot the word is right now, but nonetheless, shout out to the Ork player that is running this Cult of Speed. So now we're gonna move on to Nicholas, who had an undefeated 5-0 run with his green tide list. Yes, I'm starting out with this. Yes, it is the prior points, but this list is easy to change. Just move the looters off the list, and boom, you have your points back made enough. You simply add another enhancement, or like we've seen this past weekend where someone ran a very similar archetype and they just added another war boss on the list and changed the looters and downgraded a different unit. So there's very similar variations of this that still works, but Nicholas sent me the information, the notes and everything, so we're going to go over this with some depth. And I was very proud and enjoyed this, because Nicholas just immediately was like, hey, I learned this from when I was looking at Noah's archetype, what he was doing. Didn't look at his PDF, but I seen the video. I tested it out, and I felt like it was a great counter to his meta. So therefore, he went in there and he called it right, because he knew who was going to be there. He knew the kind of list that were running around. And I think Ork players can learn from this, because even this past weekend, we had someone go 4-1 with Green Tide, is going into the same meta that everyone's worried about with More Dakka. So if you're looking to pivot to Tide, War Horde, Tactical Brigade, these are all options as More Dakka it possibly looks to get cooked or nuked from GW. So let's take a quick look until my gets out here. Nicholas, where he was out here, goodness, I was having a brain fart where this is from, right? And he actually had the missions. That was great. Now I want to press this because I should have known this off the top of my head. Thank you. It was Finland. I didn't want to speak out of mind. Okay, so it was out of pocket. So he sent me this. He knew what was going on. It was a direct, conscious effort. He said, I'm going to take Green Tide, even if it was someone else's archetype. Don't mind. I've played so much Orks and so much melee armies that I can handle it. And he was right. He handled it quite well. So let's take a look at his enemy matchups and actually his path to victory, of course, because context matters. So mission 1, round 1 was Terraform, Swift Action, Sweeping Engagement. This was WTC Mat 57. So he actually sent me a video that I watched, and that was fantastic. I actually enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And he was kind of really just demonstrating where everything was being deployed for the beginning of his game, and that did help. And just the density of the WTC would help with his firing lanes, that I did appreciate, especially if you end up going first. That looked like a really big factor, and it really was pretty nice to witness. But the fact that you don't get to play around with that 1.1 inch away from the wall, you can't fight me factor, does also make certain things like world eaters look terrifying. So he was thinking about all of these things when he was going into this matchup. And one thing that he didn't think about, though, was Death Watch. So in his first matchup, he just said, I never played on Death Watch ever. Been playing since 8th edition. He started with this one small army in 8th edition, had about 1,000 points. But since then, he's never ever played Death Watch. So he had no idea what was going to happen here. Therefore, let's take a look at this list. He had a Captain in Gravis armor with the Tomb of Ectocrates. Mind you, side note, I used to own a Death Watch army, and it was fantastic, and I got rid of it because I own too many armies. So then we have a Judiciar with Thief of Secrets, a Lieutenant with Combi Weapon, and then a Watchmaster. He did end up locking down this Judiciar that was in a Rhino on turn 1, because he did end up going first, and so his commandos ended up making a charge. He only needed about a 7-inch charge, got a big 12-inch, completely boxed out the Rhino, so it couldn't get off right away. But throughout the game, this guy started to juice up and started to hit Kalokin times 10 and just cut through a bunch of characters and boys. But nonetheless, he got taken down like all things do when you go into the Green Tide. You get eroded, and the Judiciar got stuck in the mud. So then we have a Lieutenant with a combi weapon, like we said, and the Watchmaster. So he had Death Watch Veterans, another Death Watch Terminator squad, and then some Infiltrators, a Talon Strike team, and 2 Rhinos, and a Storm Speeder Strike. So just for the note, real quick, what he did is, because it was Terraform, he straight up he got first. He jumped out and tried to make sure that he can get on multiple objectives so he can set up Terraform. He didn't really make it to the first one, and really decided that he didn't want to overcommit on the CP reroll, and didn't know really the enemy output, so he didn't get it on the middle. But he did activate 2 different Terraforms, one on both both of the middle objectives. Like I said, the Mandos did end up pushing it, and the fact that he knew the enemy had stuff in reserves, like these big strike teams, meant that when it was his time on turn 2, he took out his Storm Boys and threw them up the field. I have myself played this archetype of Green Tide, and having all these small units so that you can activate either early, interact in skirmishes, score, manipulate the battlefield, draw out enemies so that they can get in firing lanes, or they can call charges on you, is a big factor, because you're not max scaling, skewing with just full boys. You just end up playing more mind games, manipulating, regrowing boys onto objectives, staging very well, and having commandos is very important for the battlefield manipulation, as you're very slow, and you can't just stage in the middle, let them shoot them dudes, surge 6 inches, and then stage up and regrow like we used to do. We couldn't do that anymore. And we're very aware of that. We're not as durable as we used to be. Therefore, that takes more shenanigans and thoughts. Therefore, when it was his time and he got his secondaries pulled off, he decided, well, I'm going to throw my Storm Boys to the middle, but in a way that they can't get shot, and they have to kind of draw themselves out to get shot in order to be shot. And in that case, they're closer to me, and I can end up getting some charges off. So nonetheless, he just said his loot is staged up that we're in this. Like I said, if you're playing it now, you might not even have looters on your list, but they set up to shoot some middle objectives. So he ended up winning this one, a 93-point win. And then we move on to his second. Let me move me back. Let me move back. What's up, Gits? I see everybody's excited. You guys should be excited about Green Tide. I promise you. Because as we look at the other lists that we're doing well, whether you're More Dakka or you're playing War Horde, whatever it is, a lot of the different orc lists and examples we're going to be demonstrating are actually bringing and valuing multiple 20-man unit of Ork Boys, which is something that you can go back to our index videos that we were pushing how to use Ork Boy mob videos with Stephen Pepperine, where we were demonstrating how the value of a 20-man unit of Ork Boys are without even a Green Tide detachment existing. So there are certain values and manipulations of the battlefield and objectives and everything that 20-man unit of Ork Boys can do. And if you understand that, it's really one of the bread and butter, the fundamental core pieces of orcs throughout multiple editions and rule sets. So I definitely say learn to use 20-man unit Ork Boys anyway. So even if you don't want to max out with these guys, you can gain something from just understanding how even a Tide would play on the battlefield, especially if you go into it. Hint, hint, mirror happens. So let's go into game 2. And we got my boy Andrew, super supportive, Andrew Stone with $5 for the super chat. Let me know what you've been thinking right now, Gator. How are you feeling about Dakka? Because you're always super supportive, and I want to know what you're thinking out there. So let me know what's going on, and it's so worth it. And thank you very much, Andrew Stone. That's very generous of you. It means a lot when you guys do it. It's so much that if I dwell on it, I lose my focus, but it's very humbling. So then we go to his second game, which was the World Eaters, which is kind of like, a low-key rival since they came into the 40K player-based community, right? There's like a player percentage or a part of the org player base that also plays World Eaters, just because they're a different variety of melee get stuck in. I understand that. I have a Custodes army, so I understand having that kind of different variety. But in some cases, they're kind of like the rival, because you're running into them constantly, and you're like, dude, I want to beat the crap out of these guys. I don't like that they pressure me, right? So so let's talk about this. So we have Angron, Lord Avocado, World Eaters, Lord on Juggernaut, and then 2 units of 10 Jackals with their sticky, 2 3-man units of 8-bound, a 3-man exalted unit, a 6-man unit exalted unit, and then 2 Chaos Bound, followed by 2 World Eater Mauler Fiends. These guys are low-key awesome. Like, just for fun, I mean, like as an orc, right? Speaking to you as orcs, just because which the guy doesn't have shooting, but if they did have shooting, they can get kind of blooded, so they can get additional like buffs to charging and getting stuck in. In this case, he's not taking advantage of that, but it does bring like a different combat variety and profile to it. Nonetheless, the fact that they're new detachments allows them to pick what they want to do. A lot makes them more threatening. Of course, then they still have to roll their dice though to get the value they want. But one thing he said is he was very, very familiar with World Eaters. Now, the reason he was familiar is because simply he plays a lot of combat armies, but he thought of this as a tough matchup, and that's something that Noah himself brings up. Is that Green Tide? World Eaters actually brings the output, the volume, the wounding potential, everything that you don't really like, the initiative as an orc, as a combat army, to pick up your mob units and put a lot of pressure and put you on the back foot, not let you stand on the objective and bang it out. Just kind of take that from you, stick you their way up the field as they kind of beat you back. Gets kind of annoying. So in this case, he was worried about it, but at the same time, he was very, very familiar, which means he was very on his P's and Q's when it came to the melee, and he felt like he was just had a little bit of the edge when it came to the skill set, what it was. But him being familiar with the matchup meant that he understood how to really take advantage of screening. What I mean by screening is he would set walls of barriers of just trash units, whether it's trucks or flash kits or storm boys or grots, that would kind of sit in front of the World Eaters and kind of soak up their initiative. So the Mandos in this matchup ended up being the first turn sacrifice. He did go second, as in Nicholas went second. But he was fine with that because the World Eater's lift ran straight into his commandos, and then in that case, he was able to shoot at him, start popping off, getting some charges off, and killing him. And eventually, he ended up essentially tabling the World Eater's player by turn 3, and really just kind of gunking up Angron in combat, focusing on everything else. So Mandos, huge factor. As we continue to develop as orc players, one thing is that playing the infiltrate game is a factor. at the high level tables. If you don't want to play it, it's totally fine. You don't have to. I've enjoyed and had good games without it, but I'm just saying a lot of the time playing that additional phase is another way you can look at it. Does allow you to manipulate the battlefield before the turns even start. But it does take repetition and such like that. So I understand if you don't do it, but he stresses how important Mandos were specifically in this matchup because how they dictate the pace, right? And as we go on for some of these matchups and even other detachments and lists we cover, Commandos play a big factor in this, which is something like we've always said, right? Mandos lead the way, baby. Whoa! All right, so see, I didn't want too loud. I held it back. All right, so then we go into his game 3. What's up, chat? You guys follow me? You guys follow me? All right, cool. Make sure everybody's worked up because I know some of you guys get worked up about world eaters, and I get it because they be getting my nerves too. So nobody likes Mr. Mo, right? Then we go into his third game, which was Adeptus Custodes. One thing he did point out is he also plays Adeptus Custodes, and in this case, he manages to say that the fact that it was Talons of the Emperor meant that he was like, all right, cool. He might not actually have the output to really kill me fully, but still kind of threatening. So we'll see what happens. We have 3 Blade Champions, Custodian Guard, 2 Grav Tanks, 2 Wardens, 2 Prosecutors, 2 Venatari units, minimum size, 2 Witch Seekers. Bam. And he just mentions here, one thing he mentioned that was funny is the Clydia's Grav Tanks had no one to shoot at, and he did end up reserving his Mandos. So because he didn't want to give the Custodes just big charges. This is what I mean when I say that people need to kind of like have a learning curve when playing Commandos. There are games when you just reserve them because you don't want to give enemies the ability to advance charge into you and take the initiative in this sort of matchup. So he ended up putting them in reserve, bringing them in, and doing, I think it was established locus. And the enemy was like, I have to shoot those with my Grav Tanks because they have no other option, which, doesn't go well, if you're an Ork player. If I have a Benvol and stealth, he's just shooting a couple shots, not really that cool, but it was a funny factor that they just end up becoming almost non-factors besides the tanks. One thing that he did say about this matchup, he said a couple of things about this matchup, but he said that based off the WCC terrain, if you're ever familiar with it, it does have like a little bit of a cutout and a notch that goes a little lower. That's below around 3 inches. The banner of the custodians end up kind of peaking there for the wardens based off the placement of the individual player. And Nicholas was very familiar with that, right? That's for the difference between someone who gets repetitions, practice, understand weak spots on the actual deployment zone and terrain layout. It is the difference in when we speak about skill sometimes, right? And in this case, he understood, well, if this person places this banner on the actual terrain piece, I can actually shoot at him. Therefore, he set it up so that his truck can move onto that into line of sight, shoot at that actual warden unit that was staged up in terrain. It did draw the enemy feel no pain, right? This is where a little bit of that fear mongering was a little bit of a benefactor for us, where someone just hears about what tank busters do. They hear that they're just going to eliminate you and they're -3 AP and all this stuff, and they don't consider, well, it's only with the pulse, it's only right under they don't consider the conditional situational killingness of a tank buster and the fact that the shock attack gun is most of the value behind the tank buster unit, right? That's where a little bit of the fear mongering, a little bit of the I don't know, I'd say maybe exaggeration of the value of a tank buster unit and not the clarity that the SAG itself, the shock attack gun and the value itself is the killy part of the tank buster unit in a lot of matchups, means that he ended up popping the feel no pain, which in hindsight isn't great. The flash hits themselves only have 1 AP, the tank busters only have 2 AP. He's in cover, he's 2-up save, he's taking 3 ups to the tank busters, 2 ups to the flash gets. But just the fact that he's so hyped up about their Dakka, which in some, in More Dakka, it's valuable, it's true. But this is where we talk about, we hope GW doesn't really nail the units. We don't want tank busters to go up anymore. We just want more Dakka to be kind of adjusted, right? And in this case, that guy popped the feel no pain, which we can say, haha, you didn't do it. But if you weren't familiar with the army and a faction, you heard all these things about one of their units without all the context, you might make the same mistake. So it's all good. It just happens. That's just kind of one of the factors in 40K, right? Other than that, he said they just kind of nothing too creative about this game. They duked out in the middle. After he didn't give him too any easy charges, it was the ritual. Oh, my goodness, how did I not say what mission it was? So mission 2 was Linchpin, Fog of War, Tipping Point. It just didn't matter that much for world leaders. Pretty much, it was just duke it out, kill you, table do turn 3. WTC map 51. Round 3, though, the ritual, swift action, crucible of battle. In this case, he was just saying that he didn't make any of these like fancy charges with his big weird boy mob to steal the enemy's home objective, or that their natural objective that they spawned close to their own home objective. But they just duked it out. He ended up winning the primary game, and that ended up making the difference. So shout out to him. So far, the game just works out with having the redundancy, tank busters, shooting, Mandos, 2 flash gets, SWAT teams. Everybody loves SWAT teams. Then we go into his round 4. Now he says he was very familiar with this man, Mr. Nicholas, Alexis, because he was familiar with the fact that he was bringing Tau, that he didn't know the detachment too well, which is auxiliary cadre, and he didn't really want this match going into it, but that's what happens a lot of the time, right? The world gives you what you don't want sometimes, but that you can handle. So then that's just how God works. So Nicholas was like, let's see what happens here. So he went into Tau round 4. Let's take a look at his list before we give you some context for how it rolled out, because it sounded like it was pretty nice. So he had Cadre Fireblade, Commander and Cold Star Battle Suit, Commander and Enforcer Suit, Breacher Team. Lokion Breacher teams are freaking awesome against Orks, which is annoying if you're on objectives, right? They just reroll wounds, great volume. So then we have Kroot Carnivores, 2 units of those, a unit of Pathfinders, unit of Stealth Suits, Vespids, 2 units of 3 Rampagers. One thing that he points out that he did end up getting some great value out of his flash kits. He didn't really kill that many, but he ended up taking it. But he got that multiple phase activation going on where he shot the Rampagers with some flash kits, charged into some Pathfinders, got to pick those guys up early in the game. That's something that we appreciate as Ork players, that you can even have that option. Some 2 units of 5-man Kroot Hounds, 2 units of 3 Crisis Knife Fire battle suits, 2 units of Crisis Star Scythe battle suits, and then 1 unit of Sunforge battle suits with the Ghost Keel, Skyray gunship, and then Devilfish. So if you're playing against Tau, you're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff. They have a lot of infiltration. They have scouting. They give you a different kind of pressure. So some cheeky Tau players would be like, well, I have actually going close to you. And that's actually the right move by them. And in this case, he was very familiar with that. And therefore, the Tau player just got actually first on the deployment to be the defender. He chose to deploy first so that he can end up infiltrating and trying to screen out the commandos. But he couldn't screen everything. But he did string them along quite well. In that case, Nicholas responded by screening out the other side of the battlefield and stopping the Tau scouting, because you know that there's transports can actually scout, and then they can end up getting great lines of sight, put some pressure on you, and they want to take up the battlefield, set up a lot of layers of screens, shoot you down, have the game kind of delay, and then take all your assets away as they can, kind of gang up on you. So in this matchup, he was saying that, let's see, the fact that he went first was a big factor. So when he went first, he ended up saying, hey, I've pulled turn 1. He ended up pulling Secure No Man's Land. And I forgot what the other one was. I didn't write it with ugly handwriting. Secure No Man's Land and goodness. I didn't see what else. Sorry. So, but Area Denial. That's what it was. Sorry. So he ended up drawing those to turn 1, and he said, therefore, I'm going to be quite aggro and take my commandos again, as he did early in the tournament, and just go straight into the enemy lines, make a charge, and get stuck in and try to hold them back. That's something that I always say about commandos as well. When people are like, well, let's bring them down in points. The issue if you bring commandos down too much in points is that they become a huge factor into one specific type of, army or faction. And it's a big thing because they can't be overwatched. So in this case, he used it against them, charged them up, and ended up taking the enemy, pushing them back, and putting the pressure right away. Taking his skirmish units to pick up all his initial screens as he staged up his big tide. And then from there, he called the wall on a turn 3 instead of turn 2 because his big tide units hadn't really taken any damage turn 1. So he still had that 5-up invuln to sit on. Therefore, he just went straight into the turn 3 WAAAGH and then overran the Tau. So I thought that was fantastic. And he ended up getting a 100-point win against the army that he ended up faring most, right? So that's pretty crazy. And then we go into his last matchup, which, like I hinted at earlier, because I am not a liar, this was his mirror matchup. He ended up going against another Ork player, which was Juso. I think I covered this last week. If you want to check his list out any further, but he ended up running the Warhorde list, right? So we're going to cover some more Warhorde lists today, don't worry. But we have 2 beast bosses, a Big Mech, which actually was a factor, Big Mech with shock attack gun, Ghaz Traka, a solo baby mech, and then a war boss. Follow me, lads. He had 2 10-man units of Beast Snaggle boys, and then a 20-man unit of boys. You're going to be seeing this a lot today. 20-man units of boys just be coming out. 3 units of trucks, a battle wagon, 1 unit of breaker boys, a 5-man unit of flash kits, 2 units of Gretchen, a 2 mega nubs, 2 units of storm boys, and then 1 tank buster. So he did have less Dakka than our Green Tide counterpart, Nicholas. That did play a factor because Nicholas did end up staging up in the firing lanes, thinking that he had the advantage between his loot, his range, the rerolls onto the immediate objectives, more tank busters, and then just flash gifts for more skirmishing. So he ended up feeling like that was helpful. But one thing he said was, one, he understood that in this matchup, just like the World Leaders matchup, that he was very familiar with his enemy and how to deal with the melee matchup as to deal with screens coming first. Didn't have enough. And the mission. Sorry, the mission was actually a factor. This was round 5, linchpin, raise banner, search and destroy. So realize this at this time, Orks players. There's 2 Ork players that are undefeated 4-0 going into round 5. This is why I say even if they take More Dakka off the menu, we're still eating good, like my boy Jay Hune said earlier on the stream. So in this case, linchpin is very important. You keep your home objective. And the fact that you're playing search and destroy means someone's going to be hecka aggro, right? And in this case, one thing that Nicholas pointed out was that the enemy actually wasn't aggressive, and Nicholas was. He took his commandos, put them right up on there, put all the screens right in the front, and just said, "Well, if you're gonna come at me, I got screens to take it." In this place, the other person was a little bit more apprehensive, and I understand the reason he was. He had less assets and wanted to really put a killing blow on this Green Tide unit, and we're going to see that he actually had a chance to do that as we go forward. So in this matchup, the enemy not being a factor was something Nicholas said was a weakness, though. Even though I said I can sympathize and understand why he did it, I'm just saying that Nicholas said that was an issue because as he was able to move his screen forwards, it meant that he was able to move his Dakka into the firing lanes and then put his Green Tides in places where they kind of felt like they could kind of stage up or not be too aggroed on. There was a point on turn 3 where Nicholas knew that he had to kind of get stuck in with a battle wagon so that he can actually wrap the enemy's unit of a big mech. And I think it was 20 boys. It was a big mech with 20 boys that he had. And he said that unit just kind of chucked itself across the field when he couldn't really stage up and really stop it fully from disembarking. Or was it Breaker Boys? He didn't really specify which unit exactly it was. No, it was a Breaker Boy unit. I lied. It was a Breaker Boy unit. No, it was 20-man unit because he had to follow me, lads. I lied again. See, haha. So it was a 20-man unit. So because he said he tried to make a nice big charge off on the battle wagon so that he can kind of trap it so that the enemy couldn't actually disembark with his big unit and counterpunch him and kill him. But in that case, he failed to wrap the wagon. And in that case, when it was the enemy's turn, the enemy ended up pulling Call the Horde and Overwhelming Force. So the enemy declared their wall and said, I'm going to pick up 2 units of 20-man Ork boys. And that's what he did. He ended up running up, picking up screens, picking up 2 20-man unit Ork boys. Because the big mech what existed, he was able to run through screens and actually run through and punch some of the valuable units that Nicholas had. So very nice tech piece over here. By our fellow Get War Boss out here, Jinsun Kinkakin, that we covered last week, ended up working as a nice tech piece to really punch out 20 of those 20-man bricks. It was actually the unit with the Feel No Pain that got chopped through. He popped 5 of Feel No Pains and just ended up killing that. He wasn't in Ghaz's range either. Nicholas said that he felt like he might have survived it because he was like, oh, he's not in Ghaz's range. I'm actually survived this, but he ended up not surviving it. Other than that, he said that what pretty much was happening at this, and further other than that, was now the rest of Juso's army was kind of running into screens. Other than that, big unit of boys that we just talked about. Therefore, he said, okay, now I've kind of stemmed the Ork aggression. I'm going to call my wall. So now Nicholas himself called a wall, which is the counter punch at this point, right? So he went into and started picking up his killy assets. He ended up using the unit of commandos to pick up his beast snagga boys that are kind of near a little kind of staged up kind of safely. He shot some snagga boys that were near the middle objective and then leaving just the bosses. But his between the Dakka that was left over, of course, like we always say, the green tide list, always use grenades, always use your squig bombs, always use multi-phase damage so that you can really do the best damage you can, because you're not really that good at fighting. You're simply good enough. Therefore, he used all his shooting, and it took down the boy units to weak enough that he was just kind of like the characters left over. Picked them up. He felt like he had kind of stemmed the aggression of the Ork player by tying up his scoring assets and tying up some of his killing units and continuing to have the ability to keep the advantage in scoring. There was other things that were going on there, but nonetheless, Nicholas did a great job, and he did not lose that Ork mirror matchup and ended up getting a 99-point win to end up getting his golden ticket. Congratulations to you, and you're going to see you at the World Championships as a representative from Finland, rocking the Orks and possibly the green tide or whatever you take. So shout out to this kid. Whoa! And you know what? You inspired some more people, and you've kind of proven again that Noah's kind of archetype of the group swim kind of holds true even on the WTC layout. And watching your video of your breakdown of what you were doing was quite informative and entertaining. So thank you for that. And I think a lot of Ork players should kind of learn from this and realize that as we go forward, as we're about to right now with our boy Eric Bowman. Oop, I think I went to the wrong one. There we go. Eric Bowman in the War Horde is that he too brought 20-man units of Ork boys. Now, this is what I mean when I say that Ork players behind this curtain of simply Dakka, More Dakka, is that there's a lot of 20-man units of Ork boys being used in that More Dakka, kind of these lists like we see with Manny Chima and other lists as well. But we've also seen that you can run 20-man Ork boys ever since Index Hammer, and they be successful in something like a green tide, as they really impact the game status itself. So Eric Bowman ended up going 4-1 at this Irish. I'll pull this up right here. What's up to you, Gits? Watch this while I love it. Yeah. Whoa, what's up, Nate, man? What's up, you guys? I haven't seen some of you guys in a while. Did you do a stomp of paint competition? Not yet. But we will soon. Don't worry. I love me my stompas. So right here you can see at the OP look Irish GT. Here are there was only one. There's one event that there wasn't More Dakka. What others? There's another event we're gonna show at the Rocky. I'll just show it real quick just because we're already yapping about it. Right here at the Rocky Top Open is 3 Ork players going undefeated, which is minor peak of what was happening. But at this event, the person that got third was running More Dakka and he lost, which is fine. It's okay to lose. They're not undefeatable. Everybody knows that. But shout out to you, Git. But I wanted to cover Eric Bozeman because he was running War Horde, and we know how War Horde kind of runs it out. So he ended up going in 9th, losing his second game, which I'm going to give a shout out. I think it's the Purge vote. Not sure, but I just think. So let's take a look at his War Horde list. You tell me what you think, chat, because the chat's pretty popping off right now. Let me hear what you guys are saying, because the Ork community right now is just rocking, dude. Even the Discord, I don't even say nothing. I'm letting you guys just yap it, fight the Facebook, everywhere on groups. The comments are reaching 40, whatever it may be, in multiple different Facebook groups. What is this chat saying, though? What are you guys saying, our community? Am I talking out of my butt right now? Do you guys feel similarly? Do you guys have hope for your Orks, even if More Dakka kind of goes down? I'm still pretty good, pretty excited. And when I play More Dakka and I know that I'm about to pound on someone, I just take a lot of bad walkers and have a good time in that case. Take a gargantuan squig off, take a stomp or whatever. So you can still have fun. But I don't think I'm out of pocket here, right? Right, I'm not out of pocket. But I love me some War Horde. So let's talk about Eric Bozeman and his run with the War Horde. We have Ghaz School Thraka, which I love this kit. 2 units of Pain Boys, 3 units of War Bosses, 2 20-man units of Boys, 2 trucks, and then 2 battle wagons. 2 battle wagons. And before someone asks, let me see. This was in America, and I do not see it being ran. Yeah, this was run on WTC terrain. So, nonetheless, still 2, because sometimes people ask about the two units of battle wagons. It's a little bit hard to stage up on the GW terrain. Do they still work? Still function? Still smaller profile than your 20-man units of Ork boys. Still value in that case. But very, very very much less common to see. But is that what we're going to be see going forward? Because I'll give you a hint. More battle wagons we're going to be talking about today. Then we have 1 unit of Burner Boys, followed by a Gretchen unit, 1 Mega Knob unit. Oh, let me see what I pulled up here, guys. I have a bunch of stuff open. 1 Mega Knob unit, which is only 2 Mega Knobs, and they did have twin kill saws. I think if you're playing Warhorde, there's a lot of value in taking 1 and 1, as in like you take 1 kill saw and then 1 power claw. That's just something I found a lot of value in it. I think a lot of the time we've seen and demonstrated. Don't think you're wrong for this. You take twin kill saws possibly because it's easy to remember, and then you get that redundancy on that like AP and re-rolling wounds. You get kind of like that assured, like, yeah, I got my licks in, you know, against whatever I'm hitting. So I'm down with it. I'm just saying it to the layman is what I suggest. Then we have 1 5-man unit of knobs. They all did have power claws, a 5-man unit of storm boys, and then 2 tank buster units. As you can see again, no shock attack gun. This is something that I want to demonstrate to not only the Ork player base, but also to anybody who maybe is casually just watching that doesn't play Orks or GW themselves to be known. It's very common that Ork players bring, you know, flash kits, tank busters, even 5-man unit of Ludas, or have been bringing multiple detachments for the whole edition. And therefore, well, not tank busters, I guess, but the rest of the units, the whole edition. And tank busters themselves have value if you just bring them without a shock attack gun. They don't break anything, right? So don't super nerf that. We don't want that being super nerfed. It won't, you know, change the meta of the whole game as a whole. It just gives us more tools and less feel bad moments. So, so that being said, absolutely love the damage potential that you can give Ork boys by having them near Ghaz More Dakka and popping Unbridled Carnage for 5+ lethal. It makes it so that they actually can kill stuff that they normally can't kill. Like I always tell Ork players, volume is the true strength of the Ork player base. Whether it's volume of units, volume of activations, volume of attacks. That's the one thing you should always kind of lean into if you're ever lost and making a determination on what to bring. In just like a general context without all the information, right? And in this case, he's doubled down on that. Now, our ability to stage up in the middle and really do a lot of damage, but also flip not only and hold our primary objectives, but flip the enemy's natural expansion or just retain the middle is why 20-man unit boys are a big deal. Bringing them with the pain boy and then they pop the wall is awesome. And if the enemy does commit with something that is very devastating, you have Ghaz there to perform heroic interventions or to allow the rest of the army to clap back with much lethality. So in this game, it was mission A, tipping point deployment. Off the top of my head, that's taken hold. Yeah, I didn't make sure. Hold on. Yeah, well, I know it is that, but I'm saying I'm pull this up real quick so I don't lose my spot and what these missions are. What's chat saying right here? Yeah, they're making a resurgence. It is true. The Pain Boy is just straight up making a resurgence right now in multiple Ork detachments on multiple Ork lists. We're simply seeing the Pain Boy or the Pain Boy and the War Boss and 20-man unit of Ork boys being brought there. A lot of the time it's to flip the middle, and that's actually a good idea. You didn't bring up the Nord Emissary, but you reminded me of the Nord Emissary, right? As an Ork player, knowing that a Nord Emissaries are being played, you know that you're not really one-shotting that Nord Emissary, regardless of Beast Boss or not, regardless of Ghaz More Dakka or not. You can't reliably one-shot that guy if he pops his field, you know, if he gets his field no pain, gets on an objective. Therefore, just dogpiling him, dog washing him, and mobs of boys. If you're playing into Death Guard, you know, they have Terminators, you have Morty, whatever it may be, you know, mob them. Agron, mob them. These units that maybe we can't kill, people are going back to kind of the bread and butter and just saying, well, I'll just kind of bury you in bodies. And in this case, it's working because behind it, you're bringing the death blows. And that's what I mean when I said you have Ghaz on the list to kind of act as assistance. Only Fadig. So his first matchup was against Tyrannid's Invasion Fleet, which I will say, as most people are familiar with, that Nids do pose some problems to Orks. The damage that Nids bring typically isn't respected by the rest of the 40k community because maybe they're not rank strength or they're enough AP. But against Orks, they have just enough strength, just enough AP, and then they have volume just like we do, and it does good damage. So we have 2 units of Brood Lords, so that early pressure. A Hive Tyrant, Hormagaunt, Termagons, Biovores, 2 Exocrines, 2 big bricks of Gene Stealers. So trying to run in there, it just hits you with them dev wounds, and you're like, skirt me with that, boy. I got Mandos. I don't think did he bring Mandos? I'm just talking out my butt right now. I'm just thinking off the top of my head. Yeah, he didn't bring Commandos. That's fine. You still have Graz. All right. So then we have 2 units of Lictors, 2 Maliceptors, 2 Tyrannofex, both with Rupture Cannons. If they had their Acid Spray, which are just like a version of Flamer. It's so funny. Whenever I show this on screen, on stream, they'll have like Acid Spray in small prints, and I'm just like, I forget that that's the actual primary weapon. It's, you know, but 2 Rupture Cannons is like, okay, very devastating to a battle wagon potentially if they can get line of sight on it. The Hive Tyrant doesn't allow them to advance and shoot, so they can possibly get line of sight on it. But hey, other than that, you're just kind of like, all right, not too many great units. Don't let them shoot Ghaz. We're gonna get stuck in. When I'm speaking of the 5-man unit with Unbridled Carnage that finds its value against something like the Maliceptor. So the Maliceptor is typically -1 to hit. It can be -1 to wound if you're too devastated. But nonetheless, he has a 4-up invuln. Then he can also have a Feel No Pain. A Beast Boss does do some damage to him, so you can quite hurt him. And of course, there's other units on here that can hurt him. Now we see from Eric's list, we have Tank Busters that can start chipping him if they have to. He's not really that high toughness, he's only T10. But as you go into him, and as my boy Tiger is saying in the chat right now, and I see you guys building up super chats, I'm about to respond to you guys, is what Tyranids like to do a lot of time is set some trash forward, stage up their lone ops, so that they can kind of overlook objectives and either stage on them with touch them directly, baiting you in so they can get close enough to kill you, or they'll stack. In this case, they don't have Neurolictors. But if they had Neurolictors, they would try to get close enough to you with Neurolictors instead of, you know, offensive buffs on you as well, and make you take battle shocks. But nonetheless, they act as like a kind of pull you in and then jump on you as like predators, which is very, you know, thematic. In this case, they want to run at you and kill you, which if you don't have commandos, you can fall for that. But then again, you can go forward with screens and try to absorb that and keep them out. In this case, when you have the potential to punch through Maliceptors, because a lot of the time they will stick them right on the line and say, I got a 5 of Feel No Pain, you probably won't be able to kill me. When you punch that hole through the Tyranids, you kind of continue the momentum. I don't really say that you want to play the slow game with Tyranids because they want to die for bodies. They want to die for points just like we do. And I think that's where Arrow players kind of mess up sometimes. Either they don't understand where the damage of Tyranids come from, and then they undervalue it, or they don't put the pressure on them and then they delay too late. I know that's happened to me before. And then we have my get Zach Shuck with 14 months. Whoa, let's go on get. Yeah, it's been a minute, right? Channel's only been around for less than 2 years. I think in July is the 2-year mark, to anybody who's wondering. So 14 months means you've been here the majority of this time, I get. So thank you very much for that support. It means a lot. Another person means a lot, my boy Ecop, who's always been supporting since the beginning when we used to have like 5 people on live stream. Ecop was number 6. You know what I'm saying? He said, have you guys already done the Stop a Painting competition? If not, when will you do it? No, that picture from earlier from the paint competition, right here, this is Ork Daggers, and he did the army paint competition we did. He ended up winning that one, and that's where he got his dice. That's where this picture comes from. But we have not done a Stompa paint competition yet. But thanks for asking though, and when we do, don't worry, I'll announce it loud and proud. Then we do have a paint competition going on right now, so check out the Discord and of course Facebook as well. Main concern is GW overreacting with nerfs and creating Anakin to the death war boss's level of pain over their flesh gets fried detachment. Okay, whoa, $5 to Mr. Murder Blad Moons for $5 super chat. Very supportive as always, my get. And I get what you're saying. I know a lot of the player base right now is, like I said, in a predicament, is feeling up and down. We keep getting our detachments hit and nerfed. GW gives us nice things and then take them away, and it makes us feel like that we're excluded. Let me play devil's avocado, right? Both sides of this coin. One, we get a lot of love, we get a lot of attention compared to other factions that hate on us, and we have a deep data sheet. Deep codex and a lot of data sheets we have access to. And in that case, we get a lot of enjoyment and pleasure. Yes, we do give up the fact that we sometimes are the butt of the community's jokes, which I don't like, which is why I actually made a channel. So trust me, I really don't like it. Which we're actually fighting against in this channel, right? This is why we're all growing and raising the player base, and I hope that kind of teaches the rest of the community a lesson over time and gains respect. But that being said, we don't want it with broken rules. So I'm totally in favor of people, bringing us down with the rules and GW kind of accounting for that and adjusting, but we don't want to be stuffed in the mud. People, takes a lot of time to paint these models, takes a lot to collect them, takes a lot of money, stuff like that. We want GW to kind of stop playing both sides of pulling the sparred tail. So I totally understand that. But what I will say about the Death War Boss thing is that was really just about how the rules was written. That wasn't specified to Orks. It was someone noticed, they brought it up. they couldn't hear, and then it's been adjusted. So that wasn't a direct thing, but Meganob still sucking a little bit is GW's fault. So we'll hold them accountable to that. Nonetheless, running over Tyranids is something that you could totally do if you bring Ghaz, all the mobs boys, flip the objectives. But if you tend to whiff, if it doesn't go your way, you can end up getting picked up. If you go second and you don't have commandos in this matchup, they can end up destroying, trapping your battle wagons. They can end up shooting your battle wagons with the rupture cannons, popping them, disembarking you, and then getting charged from devastating wounds, and then picking up all your boys. Even if they do it to only one of your units is a big factor, and then they end up touching, a truck, whatever it may be, you're fighting out of deployment zone. That can end up putting on your back foot and end up killing you. And that's actually what ended up happening in game 2. So on game 2, where our boy went into Necron Hypercrypt, right? Which is where the Necrons could end up picking, right, with their lanes of fire, and then dropping down, popping your battle wagon, and then kind of combined arming your assets, right? Oh, don't worry. I see you guys in chat. We'll talk about super chats. Don't worry. This is live, you get. So I'm talking to you guys from now to the end of the stream, and the stream ends when I feel like it. I just typically leave it to less than an hour and a half, so people might actually watch it. Maybe. I don't even know who watched this. Do you guys watch it? I'm just kidding. So we have let's talk about lists real quick before how we don't like Necrons. So we have Locust Lord, the Silent King, Canoptic Reanimator, the Canoptic Spiders, 2 Doom Scythe, Flayed Ones, which is their infiltrate. 2 units of destroyers, 3 individual destroyers, a unit of Locust heavy destroyers, and then a Fatto Tesseract Vault and a Tesseract Vault. Tesseract Vault, and then a Tesseract Stalker. Now, what I will say is this Tesseract Vault is the real deal, right? A lot of the time people are like, it was dumb. And what I will say is it comes off as dumb when you see it on the field, but it works. And this thing will absolutely fry and pop your battle wagons, whatever it may be. Oops, let me get rid of some of this. Now pulling up the data sheet on screen so you guys can see it. If you're playing UKTC terrain, this might come up. GW terrain, this can definitely come up. WTC, not so much because he's so freaking fat. So Fat Boy, with him Redder, because he's playing Hypercrypt, you can pick him up, put him down on the field. I have seen this at an event. I did have a Stampa, and I was going to wreck him. So, but outside of the Stampa, he's very, very, very hard to pick up. So we have 8 movement 8 doesn't matter. He picks up, but comes down. T12, 2 up armor save, 4 up invuln, 24 wounds, and then 8 OC. He has multiple profiles that he can pick from, but his powers of the Catan in your shooting phase when this model is selected to shoot. First, select up to 2 different Catan powers, weapons. So you pick 2 of those profiles. Until the end of the phase, this model is equipped with those weapons, in addition to any weapons this model cannot make with its other Catan power weapons that you did in the select of this phase. Yes. And then of course he gets to do melee, but really he's all about combat. So let's look at his weapons real quick. He has range 24. No, these are his Catan powers, but he also has some Tesla Sphere powers. So these are sustain 2, 24, 6 attacks, strength 7, hitting on 3s, 1 damage. But like I said, there's strength there. There's sustain 2, so there's the volume. And then his actual Necron Catan powers. So he has anti-meteor, which is blast, devastating wounds, indirect fire, 24-inch range, 3 plus d6 attacks, hitting on 3, strength 10, -3, 3 damage. Then he has cosmic fire, which is ignore cover, devastating wounds, torrent, Catan power, range 18, 3d6, auto hits because it's torrent, strength 6, -2, 1 damage. And then we have times arrow, which is anti-character 4 plus devastating wound, precision Catan power, 24-inch range, 1 attack, hitting on 2s, 3, -2, 6. So typically these 2 are the ones that are popping off, and he's just picking up his engagements and choosing where he wants to fight. Alongside the Tesseract Stalker, which will strip cover, so then he gets, he actually takes your battle wagon to its actual, appropriate hard save. And then he has the Doom Sights where he can actually choosing the engagements and picking you up after he pops you. So very, very odd and devastating, and then taking him out. If you're not used to it, of course, catch you off guard, and then just simply happen. So boop, yeah. And then there's a lot of contention about the battle wagon in chat. So I'm going to show the next list where he ended up winning. So he did lose that second match, but we've all ran into Necrons and some weird tech piece that we weren't familiar with. And then, oops, we ended up losing. So it happens. Then he goes into his game 3. And then one thing that's being talked about in chat is simply looks like chat's talking about Battle Wagon. I think one is very, very viable, reliable, and kind of like a staple in a certain archetypes. I think you can get away with not running any at all. And I think running one because you don't have a bunch of trucks is totally freaking awesome too. It's totally different varieties. Check out the SWAT team video we talked about, or just simply running 20-man unit of bricks with it. Running two does become match, I would say terrain dependent, and such. So if you're playing UKTC, and I've seen a lot of guys running it on there, it's running two on there. For GW, I see some people running two. UKTC, WTC, I don't think you should run that. You should run two. I'm not even sure you'd even run one. I'm not even sure you'd run one. Sorry. So now we go into his game 3, which is against Leagues of Voltan. So we have Iron Hill Champion, Grimnir, and then a Kal. Sorry, I randomly started saying dwarf names. I'm a fan of Lord of the Rings, okay? Then we have a 10-man unit of Hearthguard Warriors. And then another data sheets. We have two 10-man breaks of their Einhir Hearthguard. So these guys are like two sides of the same of a coin. In one hand, they're T6 with 2 up armor save, but they only have 2 wounds. So orcs can kind of shoot through them and kill them. At the same time, they have very, very effective grenade launchers when you stack them with sustain 2. And then their version of Oath with +1 to hit when they get the Gredgens, and then +1 to wound. So they get very, very crazy volume of shots on your actual 20-man unit of Ork boys. So if they get the ability to disembark your battle wagons and shoot those boys, really big issue. Then we have a 10-man unit of Jaegers. Do have an interesting reactive move. Got to keep that in mind. And then 3-man units of Pioneers, followed by 2 big bricks of Hackerton Land Fortresses, and then 2 Sechetars. So only 2 Sechetars means he doesn't have as much scouting. And he brought a lot more killing. And this is where we enjoy the fact that we have battle wagons, right? Because there is a time that it comes that a fortress, will probably get some shots off on a battle wagon. Can't reliably pop it. It can do some good work on it, but it wouldn't necessarily reliably pop it if it does get to line up some fire on it. But that means it also was really, really aggressive to get up on us. Let me clear some of these tabs real quick. Give me a second. What's chat bringing up in here? Yeah. So are you guys in dismay that you're not going to be able to run More Dakka anymore, or do you guys feel like Tactical Brigade will hold up the Dakka, the enthusiast of More Dakka, or the people that are enthusiastic about just shooting, right? And just speaking to the kids who like to shoot, right? Are you still feeling confident that you can run shooting style of Ork lists without without More Dakka being the factor, or do you think it really was a big factor for you? Hold on, let me bring up something also that I forgot to mention for mission 2. So mission 2 was Scorched Earth, Swift Action, and then Tipping Point, right? Which is if Hyperkick can jump on it, put their big Tesseract guy and start burning it, throw you away, start killing you. It could be a factor as well. And then on day 3, round 3, which is what we're on now, it was actually it was the Ritual, Swift Action, and then Crucible of Battle. Sorry, I had to clear some of these tabs I had open, boys. Yes. So now keep in mind when you do the Ritual, kind of nice because you can build one close to you. So you have that one naturally that you can keep kind of feeding off your points. That will be a natural expansion quite safely. But in most cases, as an Ork player, what I suggest is simply go take the enemy's objectives, right? If you're playing the Ritual, a lot of the time I like to say, don't spend too much time building too many of your own. A lot of the time you're going to build one and then contest the middle possibly when you're staging up, and then boom, it's full tilt, try to swing it, go for the objectives, whether it's with transports, deep strikes, reserves, weird boy jumps, whatever it may be. Always go for the enemy's natural what they're trying to develop on their side of the field. And this lack of Sagittars would play a factor in that. A lot of time Leagues of Voltan will play their sides of the field anyways, because they'll go Jaegers, Sagittars, stuff gets out, stuff deep strikes behind it, blah blah blah, shoot at you. In that case, if you're familiar with it, then not that you can just easily work around it, but you know what's coming, and then you can start trying your best. So 80-point win there, and then we move on to this 4th game, which was the Chaos Demon Incursion. So we have 2 Blood Masters, a Ren Master and Blood Throne, 2 of those, and then Scarbrand. So my boy's going corn out here, man. Huh? Pretty corn. He said index time. The guy put index in the job. 2 units of bloodletters, a brick, 3-man unit Nurglings, some Black Bears for sticky. 2 big bricks of blood crushers. So these guys did change. I think they were way more viable in that 4 pinball. So we'll see if those guys end up kind of contesting the world anymore. As an Ork player, they're to put it simply, they're what Squig Hog Boys kind of are to us, right? But they can come in 6 inches and then charge you. So screens. These guys don't have any shooting. One of those things that we go, hey, if you're really heavily relying on fighting, then we have the trash to have you charge into that, and then we pick you up after. So he has the 2 big unit blood crushers, followed by flamers, and then 3 5-man unit flush hounds. These guys are pretty sick. So it is what it is. What I will say is, like I always say, trash to be able to screen these guys out, so you can kind of get the initiative on them would play a big factor. And then that was a 76 point win there. And what's someone saying here in chat? No, the battle wagon T12, boys. I was gonna pull something here. I'm getting too fat fingered. So mission 4, like we said here, was supply drop, rapid escalation, and then sweeping engagement. All right. I'm not too much of a fan. It's not bad, I guess. For battle wagons, that'll work. Name boy, this is a long one. It's already an hour, and I still have another list to show. And boy, we out here today, guys. We out here today, huh? Let me see this. That was his 4th, and then for his 5th game. So as for his 5th game, he went into take and hold, hidden supplies, search and destroy. A little bit of a classic here. Let me pop some of these tabs down because I got too many open. What's up, you guys? So let me see where I'm up on that. Boom. Let's go into his 5th game. He went into Imperial Knights. He has Canis Rex, 3 units of Helvrins. 4 units of Helvrins, followed by 5 Wargleaves, a Cladius Assassin, 1 unit of Sisters with Battle Squad, and then a Battle Sisters of unit with Emulator. So this is a pretty standard meta version of Imperial Knights right now. So they bring the Sisters and the Emulator so that they actually have some kind of small units to activate for their secondaries, so they can get in skirmish fights and shoot, so they can screen combats, so they can have Overwatch potential from the Emulator. So they have a unit that they split squads of these Battle Sisters, so they're 2 5-man units, one's for just dying, one's for throwing some special weapons on you. So there's some value in that, but nonetheless, it's still Imperial Knights. And when you bring Ghaz School and all those boys and battle wagons, you can kind of stage up aggressively, because it's not reliable that those baby knights can simply pop your wagon and then access to the boys, right? A lot of the time, the issue in the Imperial Knight matchup is that Ork players are playing with trucks. So if you're playing with trucks, they can walk up, pop your truck, and then eat the stuff that's on the inside with their firepower. In this case, having the battle wagons and the Ghaz meant that 95-point win that he put up here came up to the fact that he was able to kind of just run up on him with take and hold and say, well, you're going to be scoring primary very well anyways, therefore I'm going to get stuck in your face and beat the crap out of you with 20-man bricks and then get Ghaz stuck in. So great job to Mr. Eric Bowman. 9th place, losing the hypercrypt with some weird tech piece, just kind of happens. A great job to you, War Horde, running the bid mobs of boys. And I think that you're one of the first, several other cunning gets, to really get back on track and understand the value of running 20-man units of Ork boys and how they play a big factor in our ability to kind of bog down the stuff that we don't want to kill, still continue our natural way of playing 40K, of flipping primary, applying pressure to the enemy, and then trading bodies for points. And I think that it's still at a good point cost and mix up that it's appealing. So people aren't really techs right now in the meta to deal with hordes and mobs. So a lot of the time it takes a lot of units to activate with all their small arms, and they can't really focus on everything else. Therefore, you get another continuous down punch, counter punch, or momentum. Big mobs of boys is freaking awesome. So shout out to you. And then we move on. So last but certainly not least, we have Mason Muntz. So our boy Mason Muntz also ran a green tide list. Yes, this was a completely different event at Rocky Top Mountain Open. At this event, the top 3 org players were all More Dakka players that went 6-0 undefeated. But in this case, he ended up I had him over here. He ended up getting 4-1-1. So he still ran all 6 rounds, still quite a positive record overall. And he was running War Horde with similar tech pieces like we just talked about. So, this whole stream has been giving credence and good credit and, attention to the fact that 20-man unit of Ork Boys are still and are back on the menu. The fact that the wall timing changed meant that the impact that they can bring to the battlefield has been greatly increased. The fact that you can just simply call a wall and they get out and they go run at you when you want to at the time that you need them to is huge to impose your will on the battlefield. And that's something that we're seeing here again with Mason and bringing another War Horde list that still had 2 20-man unit of bricks, like we seen with Manny Chino's More Dakka list, 20-man units of bricks, like we've seen with other lists over this past week, and of people just running either 1 20-man unit brick or 2 20-man bricks. So get it on your mind that Ork boy mobs are freaking awesome. If you don't want to run them, that happens too, though. But today we're just talking about how sick they are. So we have Ghaz Traka followed by 2 Pain Boys, 2 War Bosses, and then another 3rd War Boss. I like it. We have 2 20-man bot boys, 2 trucks, 2 wagons with the fixins, the guns, that R case, so that T12. Then we have 2 5-man units of burners. I do like that he found the points to pay for those little units of burners. A big 10-man unit brick of flashy gits because they want that Dakka. A lot of the time when you're playing War Horde, you just really feel the fact that you don't have Dakka. Not sure about the 10-man unit. I think 2.5s has been a lot more valuable for me in the vast majority of my games, but I understand the appeal. But you're going to use your strat typically on other stuff, not Overwatch with flash kits. But to each their own, typically, right? You're the one who's doing great out here. Then we have 2 minimum size unit of Gretchen, 2 mega knobs, and then a 5-man unit of knobs followed by a 5-man unit of Storm Boys. So let's take a look at this path to victory because he had 6 games overall, getting 24th. But like I said, this might be how Ork players kind of develop and adjust, right? You running battle wagons, running miles of boys, and then whatever iteration, whatever detachment, you're going to kind of stick on top of that. Because boy mobs can go in a lot of different detachments, including Tactical Brigade and even Dread Mob. So we have his first matchup. And this was a super event. It was like 222 players. If I didn't show you up here at the top, I'm going to show you just real quick for any of you guys. 3 players going undefeated. And then our third boy, our favorite, Mr. Michael Mann from Art of War, getting 3rd place. Shout out to you, Mr. Michael Mann. But he said, the detachment needs to be nerfed, dude. This is crazy. So just saying it. So let's go into, just so you guys know, I don't think the Battle Wagons Dakka is that awesome. So if you're going to bring Dakka, you need more than just Battle Wagons, in my opinion. But that might just be me. I get almost no value out of my Dakka, my Battle Wagons. So for his first game where he did end up getting a tie, he went into Angron Demon Prince with Helm of Brazen Fire. So this guy gets the ability to half damage. So keep in mind he has access to a Feel No Pain, then he has access to half damage, and then he has access to a strat that is -1 damage. So he can just really reduce even damage 3 to damage 1. It gets pretty annoying, but you can bring him down with this volume grenade stuff like that. I literally just played it day before yesterday. So then we have, but it is annoying, definitely very, very annoying. Then we have a second Demon Prince with World Eaters with wings. Demon Prince with wings. So one doesn't have wings and one does have wings. There's a difference in that, but the wing one just came down in points. So that's why people are bringing multiple, because we see there's more of them on this list. He has a Berserker Glaive that's just for more volumes of hit, good sweep with strength 6, and then strength 11, big bash attack. Then another Demon Prince with Favorite of Corn for better rolls on their blood token thing or whatever it's called. These guys all do have a 2 armor save. And then another Demon Prince. Now, the reason to bring on these Demon Princes is because everybody figured out that if you screen them, you auto kill them, right? So Demon Princes, can simply fly over your screen. So you have to manipulate with your screens better, which are what big 10-man units can do, or even 20-man units if you're willing to sacrifice one. Then we have 3 units of Jackals, followed by 1 big brick of Exalted Eggbound, a minimum size unit of Spawn, some Bloodletters, and then Scarbrand. So very, very much flying. I run at you, YOLO, crack you upside your head. But you would draw out a lot of their bigger units with battle wagons if you choose to allow them to become your sacrifices. You still have trucks, you still have grots. You even still have the flash kits, right? But like I said, you will need to set up these units where you stagger them in a way that if you are willing to sacrifice maybe one 20-man unit of boys to all these demon princes and Angron and Scarbrand, that you can kind of set it out so if the enemy charges, you can't charge over your screen and land somewhere nicely. Or if you counter charge them, right, once you base fully and finish off one of these big demons or one of your demon princes or maybe Scarbrand himself, you can kind of move your 20-man unit mobs of boys away freely with the charges and take up more space on the battlefield to screen out better. So there are ways to still deal with these guys even if they're flying. But the fact that they have the flying potential means it's easier said than done, because there's not a lot of screens on Mason's list as typical Ork units might have. Let's say if you had Sod, if you had 20-man units of grots that you might bring on lists, like some weirdos do because they want to stop call the Horde. Not weirdo in the joking way, in a loving way, or just simply a lot of trucks. But the demon princes with wings, the flying guys do all play a factor, and of course whatever the mission may be would play a factor. So no shame there. Ty with these gets killing stuff like Angron or Scarbrand could be problematic, and then other stuff fighting on death could be problematic and really swing things in game. Even for me, for example, like I said, when I played the last game before last, Angron blew up, killed 3 of my Ork units on his own, and then critically wounded tank busters on his own, just from him dying on 6, dying on death. So those kind of games can be so chaotic. Not really sure what would happen there, but typically Warhorde has an advantage there with fight on death. So I still think Orks players should be confident going into that when you're running typical archetypes, a lot of activations. Then we go into the second matchup, which is Salamanders, which can bring their own issues sometimes. And I appreciate the chat, y'all talking about the battle wagon a lot, because it's something we see all the time in Ork communities. How do you feel about the battle wagon? Let's take into context what your meta is, what you're putting in it, and how many of you are bringing and what terrain you're playing on, right? What sort of terrain? You can say GW, but I see some of you guys when I check Facebook and I check Discord and everything that you guys don't play with the bases under the terrain pieces that actually set the outline of what the firing might be, the firing lanes might be. You guys have different understandings than each other of what your table looks like and what context it actually brings. That's why I bring all this up. Yeah. So sorry, guys. Maybe Brent wanted to bring up something anyway, so we're just gonna say that anyways. So let's move on. So we have Adrex, Agatone, Bladeguard Ancient, Gravis Captain, and then Vulcan Heastan. So some buffs to your Meltas, your Flamas from this for +1 strength, and then you can get some throttling from this Ancient OC on some Blade Guard veterans. Then we have some aggressors, a big 3-man units of Eradicators, followed by 1 big brick of Furnace Marines, so they can try to pull out those dead wounds, Infiltrator Squad, 2 Redeemers, and then 2 Scouts. This does come down to the fact that everything is quite easy to kill on their list for us Ork players, other than the Laterator Redeemers. But once if we can kind of manipulate where they invest their offensive output and where they stage their enemies, we can end up kind of dissecting their army. In that case, they don't have a lot of assets. Easier said than done, but that's typically how Ork players attack Space Marines. Is you kind of get in skirmish fights. They don't have a lot of stuff to skirmish. They overinvest. They think that they might be able to withstand us, and they don't, and they run out of activation for that. Keep in mind, throwing grenades. Everything that you want to do, mortal wounds into these units does play a factor too. Eradicators don't just fall over. Land Raiders need that extra investment to kind of bring them down sometimes if Space Marines pop the defensive buffs on them. But he got the W there. Then we go into his third game. I think Salamanders are super cool. They're one of the armies I thought about getting when I was new into the hobby. So then he got his third game, which is Death God. Violence has arrived. So Blade Company. This is an actual difficult matchup for Ork players a lot of the time that they've been dealing with when they were bringing multiple Nurglings and stuff. Let's see if they're here. So we have Biologist Putrefier, a Death Guard Chaos Lord, Death Guard Terminator Armor, Foul Blightspawn, Malignant Plaguecaster, and then Mortarion. 1 5-man unit of Plague Marines, followed by a big brick of 10 Plague Marines. They're going to get the guy for fight first, and then they're going to get the critical 5+, so they get lethal 5+. 2 Rhinos, then a brick of Terminator Death Shroud, followed by a bloated a floated bloat drone, Mephitic Blight Hauler, followed by 2-3 Plague Burst Crawler, Flame Nerk Fire. Now, in this matchup, 20-man unit of boys can totally hold down Morty. That's great. Flip the objective, he becomes a non-factor. Then you go for his other scoring, killing assets. He doesn't have Nurglings to make you -2 so that he doesn't make you incapable of fighting. The Dash Route Terminators can be problematic. That's where you appreciate having Ghaz School in that case. He didn't have... Okay, he has a Chaos Lord in Terminator armor, but he didn't bring the Sorcerer, right? If you bring the Sorcerer reduces damage by 1. These guys can still reduce damage by 1, but Ghaz is still damage 4. So that could be cool. Mind you, if they put their indirect fire into your scoring assets, that could be a problem, right? If they start picking up your Storm Boys, maybe your Burner Boys, maybe even your Gretchens on your home. Therefore, it might behoove you to maybe even stick in your home real quick before you start going up the field, jump in your wagon, and then go up in stage. That might behoove you to do that, or sticky your natural expansion at some point if you're not really getting stuck in yet and you're kind of still staged up for turn 3 in WAAAGH, just so that you feel confident that you can still hold your home, your primary, and continue to move up the field. Other than that, doesn't have a lot of activations, doesn't have a lot of things going on. Neither do you as the Ork player in this matchup, but the fact that you are able to stage with wagons and then spill onto the battlefield to these armies that don't have a lot of activations or volume means that you're holding the primary this entire time. You're manipulating that whole middle side of the field, right? A lot of the time where people would like to suggest is to summarize or to simplify the game status or the same game state is if I walk over and I look at it and there's that halfway point along the battlefield and the Orks on the other side of that halfway point on turn 3 and they have their 5-up invuln on, or they have a lot of durability traits, or they've killed enough of the enemy and they can continue momentum, then the Orks are probably going to win that matchup. So that's where Ork kind of you play the slow game with the Burner Boys, with the Gretchen, with maybe even the Knobs, and then when it's go time, it's Ghaz, it's Pain Boys, and then the wagons to stand up, continue either scoring secondaries, holding other faraway objectives, or tagging other units that maybe want to come and try to kill you but are getting stuck behind and it's just fighting wagons. So it does take some skill, and in this case he proved it, because taking out Death Guard isn't always easy, and some people just kind of get stuck at that stat check or that kind of army. Then we go into this 4th game. Was that his 4th game or was it the 5th game? I think I jumped one. Yeah, no, Leagues of Voltan. Did I jump one, guys? Nope. He just played Leagues of Voltan again. All right, so now he's playing Leagues of Voltan on round 4. Yeah, Leagues of Voltan, baby. I think Orks kind of do moderately well into Leagues of Voltan. Then we got Zach Shuck with the $5 super chat. Whoa, my boy. He said, 1-2 a GT this last weekend. For 2 games, I tried using 1 unit of 20 boys war boss with 2 war bosses in a wagon. It was a big mistake and got flat. Oh my god! I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing with you just because you said how it was a mistake. I assume you meant because it was just 2 war bosses, but you were like overkilling something, and then you're getting picked up right after. That's the value of the Pain Boy is your ability to draw all of the enemy's investment, draw enemy's ability to shoot you. They don't fully kill your unit, then they charge you sometimes, and then in that case, a couple dudes have survived. Your war boss himself, a power claw, the Pain Boy himself, and is enough, and then you just clap them back, or the enemy is now so out of position that you can pick them up after. But yes, the Pain Boy assures, or it leads to a more likely chance that they overinvest. So as much as I like the war boss, because it's hilarious, the point of the 20-man boys is not to kill, it's to do that. But that's hilarious. Thank you for sharing that with everybody, because I personally have said that in chat, in Discord, and forgive me if I inspired you to do that, because I was having a good time talking about it. So then we go into the next game, which is Leagues of Voltan, which is Brokir Ironmaster, followed by a Iron Here champion. We have Earthguard Warriors, 2 units of those, more than you usually see. Normally one's fine. They kind of break apart, jump as Chars. 3 Sagittars for scouting, 1 big brick of Thunderkin, a big brick of their version of Terminators with their Volkite Disintegrators. The grenade launchers with blast, big issue for 20-man units of boys, so be careful of that. Sustain 2, big issue. 2 units of Hecaton Land Fortresses, 3 3-man Pioneers, and then the Jaegers for the reactive moves. And the Jaegers are too cool. Reactive move, T5. Maybe minor jelly for the point cost. It's fine. So in the Leagues of Voltan game, what I always like to say is that you should be aware of what they want to do. They want to oath your favorite target. They can't oath what's inside of a transport. Therefore, if you don't give them their oath targets right away and you don't really give them stuff to kill, or you don't really kill too many of their units, then they are kind of running out of stuff that they can oath too well. Therefore, if you only kill the Jaegers with something that you're already willing to let die, it means that they kind of like can't spread oath to stuff they want to kill. Then when it's your go time and you go run into them and you know the stuff that they want to oath isn't oathed yet and it isn't taking damage, so it's not so good on Overwatch sometimes for being wounded worse. And then on their counterparts, they're like, well, I didn't kill my first oath yet, and because I didn't kill my first oath, I didn't get the CP investment from that. So if you know their rules and kind of like the linear game plan, it can help you. But going first, going second, the mission, these are all gen factors as well. Not like it's just an easy game, but sometimes it can be that way because the momentum shift to Leagues of Voltan kind of sway the game sometimes, and then that happens. 92-point win. Great job there on that win. But if you have a problem with Leagues of Voltan, it's okay. They have weird toughnesses, and all the scouting and transport capability can be an issue too. So Mason seemed to be familiar and handled it well. Then we go into his second to last game, which is when he finally takes a loss, because he hasn't lost up to this point, where he goes into Tau, which is the experimental prototype cadre. So we have Cadre Fireblade, Co-Star Battlesuit, and 3 units of Enforcers, followed by 3 units of Breacher teams. Very, very annoying for Orcs players to deal with. These guys, crazy volume with strength 6, re-rolling, they can sustain, all types of stuff. And then they have 3 units of Devilfish, so they get the scout, disembark these dudes, and just delete any amounts of like Orc bodies pretty much on most objectives. Even like Flash Gits with the Big Mega Armor, like they can clean those guys up. It's problematic for us. Then we have 2 units of Crisis Knife Fire Battlesuits, a unit of Crisis Star Battlesuits, 2 Hammerhead ships, Pathfinder, and then 3 units of Stealth Battlesuits, the minimum size, and then a unit of Vespid. Going second or first, Infiltrator, no infiltrate. In my opinion, are big factors when you're going into Tau. I would find it more difficult to beat Tau without infiltrators than with infiltrators, is what I will say about this. A lot of the time, like I said, at videos, Mandos lead the way. Been talking about that since prior Nexus came out. I'm still standing strong on that. It's nothing new to us around here. But if you're new, I do suggest picking out, learning about commandos if you're going to events that are 5 rounds or greater. Not always bring them. Much more valuable in certain deployments and layouts, like on search and destroy. Deployment makes a big difference. On world leader matchups, it's a big difference. But and Taos a big difference. But it's one of those things that when we become familiar with what's being played and the diversity of the meta, if we lose More Dakka, these are tools and units you might want to consider. I'm not saying that would have won him the game because there's other factors to beating Tau, but big thing there. And it's okay. Sometimes we just, I'm lost a Tau even with Mandos, so whatever. It happens. Then we go into his last game where he seeks vengeance, and he does get it, where he goes into the Imperial Knights of Noble Lands. We have Canis Rex, followed by the typical like 4 Helvrins, and then probably like 5 Warglaves, Glady Assassin, Emulator, Sister of Battle. Typical, just straight up what they're running right now. Pretty copy paste. They get in skirmishes. They split the Skizzers units to 5-man units so they can score and screen. Emulator maybe does some cool Overwatch, and then Glady Assassin does some secondaries and does some more baby shenanigans. Pretty linear, It's cool. Really happy that he overtook that in the last round. Love to see when Orcs overcome Imperial Knights. And great job at being a big fat score of 96 points to that. So one last run on Makari's last stand Warhorde list for Mr. Mason Mutz. He has Ghaz Gotraka, 2 Pain Boys, 3 War Bosses, 2 20-man units of boys, 2 trucks, a battle wagon with 2 battle wagons with all the fixins, 2 5-man units of burner boys where the Franners bought rockets, a 10-man unit of flash kits, which I think is subject to 2 5-man units if you guys want, so that you can do more secondary scoring. You don't really have a lot of assets here in this game on this list. The 2 Gretchens, a Mega Knob unit with twin kill saws, 5-man Storm Boys, and then 5-man unit of Knobs. I like the Knobs because, like I said, you're kind of slow playing the game, slow drawing, or using Knobs on the wall turn. you really deal with that problematic, oh, this unit has a better armor save, maybe a higher toughness, needs a different kind of volume that the boys aren't bringing it. Maybe it's harder to actually get to than with the unit of boys, and this 5-man unit of war boss cover the distance quickly and actually get there. So I like that. And they can play the SWAT teams with the burner boys on maybe the weak side of the battlefield, where you just kind of harass the enemy and kind of just clearing off stuff off their objective, their natural expansion, near their home. That's where the knobs come into play. So great tools there. Great job going 4-1-1 in the current meta, and I think Ork players will be proud of that and still be quite excited. So as we showed today, that there's plenty of ways that you can still run Orks. What we're really interested to find out here is, will GW go overboard? In my opinion, they're simply waiting for Adepticon to be over, so we could think of it maybe next week where they do something about it and they change things. Because a lot of the time, we'll see what they do again this next weekend. Will the community clap back and try to kind of stifle us, or will they just simply ban us and leave us out and about, right? And so I think our players should be happy that we have so much different choices, variety. So check out Fix My List this Friday. I'll be doing with people sending me lists that some of them aren't even most of them aren't even More Dakka lists. So we're going to see Bully Boys, possibly Cult of Speed, all these different things. And I love it because it's a good way to express player variety and utility. And we'll have a good time doing that. So if you haven't checked that out, check it out sometime. Give it some love when you're painting. And of course, stay tuned for our tactic videos, your transport videos, Boeing videos, membership videos, and so much more, paint competition. So of course, check that out in the posts, in the tab. So go ahead and click that, and where all we can find you. So thank you to everybody who supported today. It was very popping off chat, mostly positive, and I was really wondering how this would sit, what this would look like. But of course, our community is the most positive. 40K is the strongest community. Whoa, right? So keep it up, guys. Just have fun. If you still want to play more Dakka, like I said, just stick some inefficient units on the list. Bust out your gargantuan squig out, dust off them, or some killer cans, some death dreads, whatever it is, and just have fun. So there's always one thing to keep in mind: is don't cross our wall, because we knock your teeth out.